They notice themselves comparing others to you without intending to. Conversations feel incomplete, laughter sounds different, peace remains strangely distant, not because their life has become empty, because something remains unfinished. Meanwhile, you have been discovering pieces of yourself that once seemed lost. You have learned lessons through disappointment that success could never have taught. Compassion has grown where bitterness might have lived. Wisdom has quietly replaced desperation. You don't always recognize your own growth. Growth rarely announces itself. It simply becomes visible when old situations no longer control you. That is why this season feels different. Not because everything around you has changed, because something within you has. There is an old version of yourself that would have chased certainty. This version waits with dignity. The old version demanded immediate answers. This version understands that some truths unfold slowly. The old version believed every delay meant rejection. This version has begun discovering that delays sometimes prepare hearts rather than separate them. Still, questions remain, questions always. Create the deepest stories. What changed inside the other person? Why now? Why after all this time? Why does it suddenly feel as though invisible pieces have begun moving into place? Imagine standing beside a quiet lake before sunrise. Nothing appears to happen. The surface barely moves. The air remains still. Someone unfamiliar with nature might believe the world itself has paused. But beneath the water, currents move, fish travel unseen, life continues in silence. The greatest movements often happen where eyes cannot follow. Human hearts are much the same. There are transformations that never appear on the outside until they have matured in secret. Perhaps the person connected to your story has entered such a season. They have encountered moments that forced them to confront themselves honestly. Masks became exhausting. Excuses lost their power. Old fears no longer offered comfort. Life has a mysterious way of leading people towards self-reflection when they least expect it. Sometimes through joy, sometimes through disappointment, sometimes through unexpected solitude. Whatever the path, it changes them, not instantly, but undeniably. You would scarcely recognize certain conversations they have been having within themselves. Questions they once ignored now keep them awake. Regrets they buried have begun asking to be acknowledged. Dreams they abandoned quietly return. And among all these thoughts, your memory remains, not as an obsession, not as fantasy, as unfinished truth. That realization has surprised them more than anyone else. You see, people often imagine transformation arrives with dramatic signs, thunder, lightning, miracles impossible to ignore. Yet genuine change frequently enters quietly. One honest conversation, one unexpected realization, one ordinary morning that somehow feels entirely different, one decision that changes every decision afterward. This is how stories shift direction, almost invisibly, until suddenly everyone realizes they have entered a completely different chapter. Have you noticed subtle changes within your own life recently? Perhaps certain doors closed unexpectedly. Perhaps plans dissolved. Perhaps people drifted away without explanation. At first those moments felt like loss. But what if they were creating room? What if emptiness was never punishment? What if it was preparation? Preparation rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. seeds disappear into darkness before becoming forests. Dawn arrives after the longest hours of night. Healing often begins before pain fully leaves. Your story has been asking you to become someone capable of receiving what your earlier self would have struggled to protect. That process required patience, far more patience than you wish to offer. Yet here you stand, still believing, even after disappointment, still hoping. Even after uncertainty, still choosing kindness when life offered countless reasons to become cold. That matters, more than you know, because character quietly attracts what desperation never could. Elsewhere, another realization has begun forming. The person who keeps returning to thoughts of you has started recognizing patterns they once overlooked. They remember moments they dismissed, conversations they misunderstood, silences they interpreted incorrectly. Time has become an unexpected teacher. Distance has revealed details proximity concealed. Sometimes people understand the value of a connection only after life removes its constant presence, not because they failed. Because perspective often requires space, yet space carries risks. Too much silence creates doubt. Too much hesitation creates missed opportunities. Too much fear convinces people that tomorrow will always remain available. But tomorrow is never promised, only possibility is, and possibility asks for courage. This is where the story begins changing, not with certainty, with courage, very small courage, the kind that feels almost invisible, a thought, a memory, an impulse to reach out, a decision postponed one day less than before. The movement is subtle, but it exists. You cannot see it yet, neither can they fully explain it. Still, something has undeniably shifted, if only you could witness the conversations happening inside their heart, if only you knew the questions replacing old assumptions, if only you understood how often your name almost escapes their lips before they choose silence instead. There is a difference between forgetting someone and trying to forget someone. One happens naturally, the other requires constant effort. They have grown tired of pretending certain feelings disappeared. Pretending consumes enormous energy. Truth, however, truth eventually asks to breathe, and once truth begins breathing, stories accelerate. Still, one question remains hidden beneath every other question. Why does this feel urgent now? Why not months ago? Why not years earlier? Why does it seem as though invisible clocks have begun counting towards something neither of you fully understands? That answer has not revealed itself yet, not completely. Pieces have appeared. Enough to awaken curiosity, not enough to satisfy it, because some revelations lose their power when delivered too early. Every meaningful story knows the importance of timing. Every unforgettable journey understands the value of anticipation. You are standing closer to an answer than you realize. So are they. Neither of you can yet see the entire picture. Only fragments. Only reflections. Only whispers carried through ordinary days. But whispers, when followed patiently, often lead toward truths capable of changing everything. And there is one detail, one quiet, astonishing detail, that neither you nor this other person has discovered yet. It is the reason every unexpected delay, every strange coincidence, every lingering memory has mattered far more than either of you could imagine. The silence stretched longer than either of them expected, not because nothing was happening, because the deepest changes rarely announce themselves. There are seasons when a single decision quietly reshapes the direction of two lives long before either person realizes it. A choice to heal instead of hide. A decision to forgive instead of harden. A willingness to become honest after months of pretending everything was fine. These moments seem ordinary while they are unfolding. Only later do they reveal their significance. The one whose thoughts keep returning to you has begun noticing something impossible to ignore. The future they once imagined no longer feels complete without asking difficult questions. They have discovered that avoiding uncertainty has also meant avoiding possibility. Every familiar place now carries unexpected reminders. Every quiet evening creates room for reflection. Every unanswered question grows a little louder, yet uncertainty remains. Not because the path is closed, because courage has not fully caught up with desire. Meanwhile, your own journey has not been standing still. The person you are becoming is different from the person who first began this story. There is greater patience where frustration once lived. There is deeper compassion where disappointment once left its mark. Growth has changed your perspective in ways you may not recognize until someone else notices. Sometimes two people are separated not by distance alone, but by timing. Timing cannot be forced, it can only be met, and when it arrives, both hearts must recognize it together. That is why the next chapter cannot begin with certainty alone. It begins with honesty, the kind that asks difficult questions, accepts unexpected answers, and refuses to let fear write the ending. Neither of them knows what tomorrow will bring, but both stand closer to a crossroads than they realize. And when the next unexpected moment arrives, one simple choice, made in only a few seconds, will determine whether this story moves toward a new beginning or becomes a memory of what might have been. If you believe in God, type Amen and subscribe my channel. My beloved child, stop scrolling for just a moment. There is something about this moment that is different from all the others you have lived through. You did not arrive here by accident, and this story was not placed before your eyes without purpose. Before you continue with your day, before another thought steals your attention, allow your heart to become still. Something has been quietly unfolding around you, hidden beneath ordinary conversations, unnoticed glances, and moments you almost dismissed. What you are about to hear is a fictional story of hope and spiritual imagination, but if it awakens courage, wisdom, or compassion within you, let those gifts remain long after these words fade. You have spent so much time wondering whether anyone truly sees the depth of your heart. The world has taught you to measure love by speed, by certainty, by visible signs. Yet there are stories that begin long before two souls recognize one another. There are moments that appear ordinary until time reveals that they were the beginning of everything. There is someone whose thoughts have begun returning to you more often than either of you realizes. They may not fully understand why your name enters their mind at unexpected hours or why certain memories refuse to disappear. They tell themselves it is coincidence. They convince themselves that life is simply playing strange games with memory. But every time they try to dismiss the feeling, another unexpected reminder appears. Perhaps it is a familiar place, perhaps it is a song, perhaps it is silence, and strangely, the silence speaks louder than the noise. You have wondered whether your own heart has imagined too much. You have questioned your instincts because disappointment taught you to distrust hope. Every unanswered message, every relationship that faded without explanation, every promise that dissolved into uncertainty left behind invisible walls. You built them carefully. You believed they would protect you, yet even the strongest walls cannot completely silence hope. Something within you has remained awake. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough to survive. There are evenings when you suddenly remember a conversation that seemed insignificant at the time. You replay expressions, words, pauses, tiny details that most people would forget. You ask yourself why those moments still linger. Why now? Why after so much time? Stories often begin with questions that refuse to disappear. The heart notices what the mind cannot explain. Meanwhile, somewhere beyond your awareness, another person has been wrestling with questions of their own. They have tried to stay occupied. They have buried themselves in responsibilities, distractions, and routines that leave little room for reflection. Yet every attempt to move forward without looking back somehow circles them toward the same destination, toward you, not because life is simple, not because every obstacle has disappeared, but because some connections grow stronger in absence instead of weaker. This has confused them. It has challenged everything they believed they understood about timing. There are moments when they almost reach out, their fingers hover, then fear whispers. What if it's too late? What if nothing remains? What if the silence has already answered? So they wait, and waiting creates another story inside them. You know something about waiting, don't you? Waiting has become familiar. Waiting for clarity, waiting for healing, waiting for doors that never seemed to open, waiting until hope became exhausting. You have smiled while carrying questions that no one else could see. Others believed you had already moved on because they could not hear the conversations inside your heart. They could not see how often you wrestled between letting go completely and leaving just enough room for possibility. That quiet struggle has shaped you more than you realize. It has softened certain parts of you. It has strengthened others. There were nights when you almost convinced yourself that your chapter with meaningful love had quietly ended before it truly began. You accepted routines because routines ask fewer questions than dreams. But dreams have remarkable patience. Sometimes they wait silently until the soul becomes willing to listen again. The strange thing is this: neither you nor the other person fully understands what has been changing beneath the surface.